Paris, the city of light, romance, and luxury. It was meant to be her triumphant return, the moment the world would remember why she once captivated global attention. The air buzzed with excitement as the flash of cameras lit up the night, silken gowns shimmered under chandeliers, and fashion's elite gathered in admiration. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was ready to reclaim her crown in the spotlight. After enduring months of controversy, relentless whispers, and harsh criticism, she wanted this to be her grand statement, a declaration that she was still a force of elegance, confidence, and control. But just as the narrative seemed to turn in her favor, that perfect fairy tale began to unravel. The applause hadn't even faded before another blow landed, and it came from the last place she wanted. South Park had done it again. The famously ruthless animated show, never one to show mercy, released a new episode that didn't simply joke about her, it went for the jugular. Their savage parody didn't just mock Meghan's Paris appearance, it dismantled it entirely, turning what was meant to be her comeback into another headline for all the wrong reasons. Reports soon followed that Meghan was left devastated. Those close to her said she broke down in tears, asking again that haunting question, how did it all go wrong, again? To understand the sting, you have to rewind. The world hadn't yet forgotten her Jamgate, embarrassment, or the lukewarm reaction to her luxury wine brand launch. Yet there she was in Paris, poised, polished, and wrapped in a creamy, refined ensemble that radiated old money sophistication. It wasn't just about fashion. It was a message. Meghan wanted to show that she couldn't be silenced by the palace, crushed by the press, or written off by Hollywood. Her confident strut through the streets of Paris was meant to scream rebirth and resilience. But as she smiled for the cameras, another storm was quietly gathering, not on the runway or in the headlines, but in the South Park writers' room, where satire was about to turn her dream comeback into yet another public ordeal.
Relaxing.
Insiders have revealed that Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the notorious creative minds behind South Park, had been secretly plotting something huge. A direct sequel to their explosive Worldwide Privacy Tour episode, the one that reportedly threw Meghan and Harry's PR team into chaos, was in the works. But this time, they weren't holding back. The new installment, ominously titled The Duchess of Desperation, aired just days after Meghan's highly publicized Paris outing, and it hit hard. The animated version of the Duchess appeared in a nearly identical beige outfit, strutting through Paris Fashion Week and dramatically waving to imaginary cameras while the animated crowd looked bored. The biting twist? She hadn't even been invited. Then came the killer tagline, "When relevance calls and no one answers, ouch." That single line spread like wildfire online, sparking massive conversation and disbelief at how savage the parody had become.
We really can get away from it all. No more magazines
And then came the laughter, waves of it echoing across the internet. The moment the episode aired, social media practically caught fire. From London to Los Angeles, timelines were flooded with clips, memes, and reactions. Within hours, hashtags like #SouthParkMeghan and #Duchess of Desperation dominated feeds across X, TikTok, and Reddit. The mockery spread like wildfire. Users began making side-by-side comparisons between the animated parody and real photos of Meghan in Paris. Her signature poses, polished smiles, and perfectly rehearsed hand waves, it was all there. The resemblance was so uncanny that one TikToker quipped, "South Park didn't need to exaggerate, she already did the job for them." For Meghan, the timing couldn't have been worse. Paris was supposed to be her moment of redemption, the stage where she'd reclaim her narrative and reintroduce herself to the European fashion elite. Instead, it turned into a PR nightmare. Insiders claimed she was heartbroken when the episode went viral, reduced to tears after realizing she'd become the punchline of a global joke. She reportedly told friends she felt humiliated on an international scale. But South Park didn't stop at her wardrobe or her public image, it went for her entire brand. In one biting scene, the animated Duchess sits front row at a fictional fashion show called Virtue Very, a not-so-subtle jab at her supposed moral branding and authenticity campaigns. While the cartoon designers ignored her, she was shown frantically scribbling in a notepad with ideas like start a podcast about being misunderstood and launch a fashion line made from recycled headlines. It was ruthless satire at its sharpest. The show even poked fun at her real-life setbacks, her failed Spotify deal, the production troubles at Netflix, and those never-ending whispers about her lifestyle brand. In one cruelly clever line, her animated assistant tells her, "Your podcast about vulnerability has been canceled again." The studio audience laughed. Meghan didn't. Reports from Montecito painted a grim picture. She was crushed, and Harry, protective as ever, was furious. He supposedly wanted to involve lawyers, but advisors reminded him that parody is legally protected. And, as everyone knows, South Park lives for exactly this kind of chaos.
4.2 million Instagram.
Beneath all the noise, outrage, and online debates, a quieter and far more damaging shift was taking place. Meghan's public image, already weakened by failed ventures and dwindling sympathy, was starting to fracture beyond repair. To many observers, it felt like poetic irony. The very show that once dented her credibility had returned to completely dismantle it. An insider told Page Six that this was Meghan's ultimate nightmare, becoming a joke. For years, she had worked to craft an image of resilience, depth, and misunderstood strength. But now, South Park had turned her life into satire, stripping that narrative away. What made it worse was the silence from Hollywood. When the first parody aired, a few stars had timidly defended her, hinting at compassion or unfair treatment. This time, there was nothing. No Oprah, no Tyler Perry, not even a supportive emoji. Mocking Meghan Markle had, it seemed, become socially acceptable.
But I can't get away from them! They're everywhere! In my face! Look, Kyle, we just kind of don't care about some
Don't you miss that feeling, getting lost in a story that feels like it was written just for you? If your heart needs a little magic, click on the link in I button or in the description or pinned comment. It's waiting at infowebster.com. Go feel something again.
The memes didn't just spread, they exploded, flooding every corner of the internet like a tidal wave no one could stop. Within hours, timelines were drowning in jokes, clips, and quotes mocking Meghan Markle's portrayal on South Park. One viral post summed it up brutally. South Park just did more damage to Meghan's brand in 22 minutes than the palace did in 2 years. Another twisted the knife further. If she wanted privacy, maybe skip Paris with a camera crew. It was merciless, and yet, for the online crowd, irresistibly entertaining. Her PR team scrambled into full crisis mode, reportedly calling media outlets and pleading with them not to amplify what they described as misogynistic and unfair attacks. But in typical South Park fashion, the more someone tried to shut down the joke, the louder it got. The internet thrives on irony, and Meghan's attempt to control the narrative only made the ridicule sharper. Within hours, she wasn't just a trending topic. She had been christened by social media as the Duchess of Desperation. Even usually polite fashion blogs joined in, posting side-by-side photos captioned with biting lines like, "Art imitates life." For Meghan, it wasn't just another hit piece, it was an identity crisis. After years of carefully reinventing herself from royal rebel to humanitarian influencer, her grip on her public image was slipping fast. Every move she had made to shape her brand suddenly looked contrived, artificial. She had always tried to tell her story on her own terms. But now, the story was being told about her, and the world was laughing. And then came the real blow. Insiders claimed Meghan had been in early talks with a major French luxury brand right before Paris Fashion Week, discussions that could have led to a high-profile campaign deal. But after the South Park episode aired, the brand quietly walked away. No one wants to be part of a punchline, one insider admitted flatly. Back in Montecito, chaos replaced calm. The Sussex mansion, usually staged and serene for Netflix cameras, turned into a war room. Phones rang nonstop, aides rushed from room to room, and Harry tried desperately to hold things together. Meghan, furious and heartbroken, felt betrayed, not just by South Park, but by the deafening silence of Hollywood. Her friends weren't defending her. The media was laughing. The world that once celebrated her was now mocking her. She had been criticized before, sure. But never like this. The Duchess of Desperation episode didn't just trend, it became a cultural lightning bolt. Even late-night hosts joined in, joking that South Park didn't create Meghan's Paris moment, they just filmed it better. That one line captured the whole thing. Meghan's real life had blurred so completely with satire that no one could tell the difference anymore. Desperate for control, Meghan's team contacted lawyers again, hoping to find a way to claim defamation or breach of privacy. But the answer was brutal and final. South Park was untouchable. Parody, as the lawyers told her, was both legal and lethal. There was nothing she could do. So she turned to the one weapon she still had, the media. Within days, sympathetic magazine stories began to appear. Headlines like Inside Meghan's Pain After Cartoon Humiliation and Duchess of Strength, Rising Above Hate, tried to reframe her as the victim of online cruelty. But the effort backfired spectacularly. Comment sections filled with sarcasm. Rising above hate? She's suing cartoons. Another quipped, if she learned to laugh at herself, people might actually like her. The damage was done. Then South Park landed its final, devastating blow. The show's official account tweeted a single line, when they tell you to stop watching, but it's about you. One sentence, 1 million likes. The internet went nuclear. Trey Parker and Matt Stone didn't need to respond to the backlash. Their silence was louder than Meghan's outrage. Still, her team refused to give up. They pitched empowerment-themed interviews, floated ideas for a Vogue essay about resilience, and the unfair mockery of women in power. But editors reportedly balked. It would make her look fragile, one insider said. Exactly what South Park had mocked her for. The essay was quietly shelved. Meanwhile, the South Park episode kept climbing in viewership, becoming one of the most streamed episodes of the year. Every attempt by Meghan's team to bury the story only made it trend harder. And soon, the humiliation leapt from screens into real life. At a Los Angeles red carpet event, as Meghan and Harry stepped out smiling for photographers, a voice from the crowd yelled, "Hey Meghan, will there be a season 2 of your South Park episode?" Laughter erupted. Cameras flashed. Harry's jaw tightened, and Meghan's practiced smile faltered. The photo of that frozen smile went viral within hours. She wasn't just being mocked online anymore, she had become the joke. Insiders said that once back in Montecito, Meghan withdrew completely. She canceled meetings, avoided calls, and stayed off social media. Harry tried to reassure her, insisting the storm would pass. But it didn't, it only intensified. The episode had reopened every wound, every criticism. The internet began excavating her past, old interviews, old clips, forgotten photos. Her pre-royal Hollywood days were suddenly back under the microscope. It was as if the world was dissecting her life, one meme at a time. And then, in a twist that made things worse, the palace finally spoke, sort of. A royal insider told The Telegraph, "The palace has no comment on fictional portrayals, but satire often reveals truth more sharply than speeches." It was a polite statement, but the meaning was clear. Even the royals were laughing. And that, for Meghan, was the cruelest blow of all. This wasn't just about a cartoon anymore, it was about her legacy. She had worked tirelessly to shape herself as a modern-day Diana, misunderstood yet brave. But now that image was in ruins. She wasn't seen as a voice for change anymore. She was the Duchess who couldn't take a joke. In Hollywood, perception is everything. And as one insider bluntly said, if people are afraid to joke about you, you're powerful. But if you become the joke, you're finished. That realization hit Meghan like a thunderclap. Her Paris comeback dream had turned to ashes. The careful plan to rebuild her image had collapsed in spectacular fashion. South Park had done what tabloids and critics never could. It turned Meghan Markle into the very thing she feared most, a punchline. But this wasn't the end. Not for her. Because even as the world laughed, Meghan was already planning her next move. Behind the walls of her Montecito estate, something was brewing, not despair, but determination. Sources whispered that she began reaching out to her most trusted allies in Hollywood, those who had supported her rise before. One insider claimed she told them, "They think I'm finished. I'll show them I'm not." She was ready to fight back, not through lawsuits or headlines, but through reinvention. Her plan was bold, a complete rebrand. No more misunderstood Duchess, no more royal victim. Meghan wanted to become something untouchable. She reportedly began sketching out new projects, a global women's empowerment series, a docu-style special about resilience and redemption. It was ambitious, maybe too much so. Even her closest friends worried she was pushing too hard, too fast. She doesn't understand that the internet never forgets, one source said quietly. Every move now has to be perfect. But Meghan was unstoppable. If they're going to talk about me, she reportedly told her team, I'll give them something worth talking about. Beneath that fierce confidence, though, there was exhaustion, a quiet ache of someone still nursing deep wounds. Friends described her as emotionally drained, but clinging to hope that one perfect move could rewrite her story once again. As the noise slowly faded and the memes lost momentum, a strange stillness surrounded Montecito. Hollywood insiders whispered, waiting to see what Meghan would do next. Because one thing had become clear, she wasn't done fighting. She was preparing for her next act. Whether it would be her ultimate comeback or her final curtain call, no one knew yet. But one thing was certain, the world would be watching.